Welcome, Coach Kia here, and in this video we are going to dive deep, that's right, deep into the comprehensive guide. And the whole reason I decided to do this is because I actually walked a group of participants through this guide, paired up with a 4-week program. It started off as a 4-week challenge in a Facebook group over a year ago, and they had no clue that I had this programming and all of this to come afterwards. But I walked this whole group through this 4-week program, and each and every one of the participants saw amazing results. And this is what surprised me, is I originally put this program together to really address anybody who was not really a beginner, not advanced, but somewhere in between, like myself. I really built it for myself and wanted to take a group of participants through it to see how well they would do, paired up with a comprehensive guide that gave all the protocols they need to follow through that programming, but also a program that allowed them to mix it up, have it varied with a busy schedule, and that anybody can implement. So the thing that surprised me the most is that I had both men and women in this group of participants, but also it was all walks of life. I had some fellow firefighters in there. I had teachers, I had construction workers, I had a nurse, I had a stay-at-home mom. Those schedules all had a wide variety of restrictions that came with the time that they had available, but also there were also different goal types going through the program. I had a couple of hard gainers that were just having issues trying to add some muscle. And of course, I had people that wanted to lose weight, so target the fat while also getting a bit stronger. Then I had purely just power lifters, people that wanted to get stronger and improve overall musculature, strength, conditioning, mobility, all those things we're looking to get better at. And I walked them through this same program. They all had amazing results, from losing weight to gaining muscle. And paired up with that, before we even got into the programming part, is we had to revisit some of the basics, some of the fundamentals when it comes to the actual programming, beginning with nutrition. And the comprehensive guide starts off right away. Man, I got my picture so stinking big, you can't even see it. Is if you are to open the comprehensive guide, look at that. That's an awesome cover. Right here, it starts off with the diet and nutrition basics. And I like to preface this with, keep it simple. Keep it something that's going to be enjoyable. What I know from Coach Kia, having done these highly restrictive programs, from doing these extreme programs, all right, is that they're not sustainable. You can ascertain a goal. If you want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, you can do it. Are you going to be very happy? Are you going to be very nice to your kids or your coworkers? I don't know. But I know when I did those extreme levels of dieting, that it came at a cost, right? So if you want to do that, you can. But my preface to everything is why I have it number one here when it comes to the comprehensive guide is, you want something that's going to be effective. Yes, but enjoyable. Yes, and more importantly, I focus on the long term. So if you can stick to it and you enjoy it and you can do it for a long period of time, you are going to see results. And so that's how we're kicking off the basics of diet and nutrition. And really, you got to calculate. You got to calculate what's your maintenance calories. And let me explain. This, look at it. It looks like a long, complex mathematical formulation, which it is. But essentially, this is what you're doing here. You are figuring out what you need to maintain. And given my medical background, I like to tell people it's finding homeostasis. That's kind of a fancy word, scientific-y, medical word of saying stay the same. Now, homeostasis is the term we use to get things back regulated, back to normal. We want to be home. I'm at the home office today, so this makes sense. You want to be home. Home is where the heart is. That's baseline. That's where you want to be. So by calculating what your basal metabolic rate, or what your base is, that's what your body needs. That's what your body requires to remain at a state of homeostasis. But if you know anything, you're not laid up in a bed all day long. That is simply your body's energy requirements to blink, to breathe, for your heart to beat, for your digestive system to move around. All those things you don't have to think about that operate daily, that's what your body's energy requirements are. And this calculation gives us a round number for that. So I've provided the calculation in there, but I'm going to give you the actual way that Coach Kia figures this out. And this is one of the benefits of you having access to this program is you can do these calculations all day long. They're going to get you a roundabout number, but the absolute fail-proof way to figure this out is to measure. Okay, there's this common saying, if it could be measured, it can be managed. And by doing so, you can then make the adjustments needed. So what I do with my clients is for the first 3 days, we are just measuring. We're not running calculations. We're not trying to sort through a bunch of scientific literature. No, I just want to measure where you're at. And the approach we'll take is for those first 3 days, just getting your weight. You have to measure your weight. I'm in a weight loss program. Well, how much do you weigh? I don't know. It's going to be very tough to know if you're even losing weight. So the first thing you need to do straight off the bat is get a baseline weight measurement. Get you a scale. Stop saying that you don't have $30, $40 to go and buy a digital scale. I know you probably went out to fast food sometime in the last month and the dollar menu ain't what it used to be. You don't go there to save money. You're going to spend about $30, $40. Especially if you're feeding a group of kids like I am. Man, I went to McDonald's the other day to get my kids stuff. I can't believe I'm admitting that on here. But it ended up being like $45, $50. Versus that, you can get this tool, this thing that you type on this little box that you have in front of you, this little thing you hold all day. You could literally put your fingers in strategic places on the screen here, and a day later, a box will arrive on your front door and it will contain exactly what I'm talking about, a digital scale. You get this digital scale, you take it out the box, you put it down and you step on it. And then through scientific-y, magical stuff, it actually will put that information into your phone. That's the baseline. Get you a digital scale. Stop playing. Stop making the excuses. Break off $50. It's go and then order it on Amazon. I don't care which one it is. They all pretty much do the same thing. It will measure your weight. So the first thing we do is measure your weight. Step on the scale. And for that first 3 days, we are just documenting. We're gathering data. We are documenting everything you eat. So before you eat a breakfast, you will take a picture, you will log it. Lunch, take a picture, log it. Do that for 3 days. And each of those days, you're stepping on the scale, that magical scientific thing that you just, all you got to do is step on it. And then through osmosis or some weird scientific way, that information goes from the scale to your phone. And that's where we get your measurement. So by not changing anything you're doing, but stepping on the scale and taking pictures and logging what you're eating each of those 3 days, we'll know at the end of that 3 days if that magical number on that scale is going up or if it's going down. Or here's the other thing, if it's staying the same. So this is what one can deduce given that approach. If you are not changing a single thing and you're getting your weight measurements over those 3 days, if at the end of those 3 days that weight's going down, without having to run a calculation here that we have on page 1 of the guide, without having to do some formulation and figure it out, we know that your current habits right now, that you're in a deficit. Remember we talked about being at homeostasis, or that basal metabolic rate. That means you're eating simply just enough to stay exactly the same. Homeostasis, you're home, you're safe. If at the end of that 3 days it's going down, then what you're currently doing, you're on the right path. We would just need to make some adjustments when it comes to your macronutrients, and we'll get into that. If at the end of 3 days it's up, well, then you're eating at a caloric surplus. This is not working out. This is not going to the gym. Whatever your day-to-day is, measuring it those first 3 days, stepping on the scale, logging what you're eating. Then we can look at that group of measurements or that food that you've been documenting, and we can look at that. Then we can break it down and we can see if you're too much in one micronutrient or the other. It's going to tell us a ton of information. Is it going to take 3 days? Yeah. Is it going to be a little bit of work? Well, absolutely. Is it going to be worth it? Yes, because what you do here, calculating your maintenance calories, figuring out if you're in a surplus, if you're in a deficit, or if you're eating just enough to remain the same, That's going to give you all the knowledge we need and that I need as a coach to help you make the adjustments as you progress through the rest of this programming. I'm going to be ending this video here, and then in the next section, we're going to be breaking down those magical macronutrient things we talked about. You've probably heard of them before. That's protein, that's fat, that's carbohydrates. Now, why are these important? They're only the main driver of energy. And if you can think of it and simplify it into those terms, it makes everything else easier. When we figure out how to distribute those macronutrients based on what we gathered in those first couple of days, then we know what maintenance is, and we would simply need to make adjustments. And it doesn't matter if you're in a fat loss program, or if you're in a hypertrophy program, or if you're just looking to improve health markers. Knowing this information is going to be key. Knowledge is power, right? And that's what we're going to give you. So in the comprehensive guide, we work through the calculations. I'm going to give this to you as the homework before the next assignment. Actually run this calculation. Coach Key is not good at the maths. The math is not mathing for me. Yeah, I'm an engineer at my job. Yeah, I'll be able to figure out what my budget is for the week. Not good if I'm going to McDonald's all the time. But I want you to run this calculation for you. Plug in those numbers. Run it. Write it down. Put it in the Google Notes that you got. Put it in your Apple Notes, whatever phone system you have. Put it out in your notes. And then forget about it. And then through that first 3 days, when we're doing this data collection part, when you're stepping on the scale, getting your weight, and you're logging what you're eating for those first 3 days, you're not changing anything else. When we break it down, I think the numbers may surprise you, and we'll be able to calculate what your maintenance is, and the adjustments are going to make sense soon. And that's why you're going to be in the next lesson. So in this one, I want you to make sure you have the guide, run the calculation. If you don't have a scale, get one. If you don't beg, borrow, and steal, do whatever you got to do to get one, because that one thing you get is going to be with you, not just through this challenge, but as long as that thing's got batteries in it, and as long as it works, it's going to be providing you value. Talk about return on investment on that. $50, you can have that thing for 10 years. I think I've got like 10 scales. So I'm speaking from experience here. In the next lesson, we'll dive into macronutrients and some of the other important, basic, essential things needed as we progress through the program. Coach Kia signing off. I'll see you in just a minute.